Welcome to the Mamaverse, the ultimate self-care journey for every mom. So the Mamaverse is a community where women can make genuine connections while taking part in fun self-care activities. My name's Tuhin, and I am the host of these Mamaverse IG Lives, and we go live at least 2 times a week, where we bring in guest experts in self-care and wellness. So whether that's in physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual wellness. Today, I'm excited for our guest, Cheryl. She is a health and wellness coach that specializes in low carb and keto diets. The topic of today is how to heal, nourish, and grow with a low carb diet. So, hi there.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for joining.
I'm great. Yeah, thanks for having me. This is so exciting.
Yes. So at the Mamaverse, we bring in expert guests like Cheryl, who specializes in different areas of self-care and wellness. And today we're talking about low carb diets and how we as moms, busy moms, women can incorporate this. So Cheryl, do you want to do like a quick introduction of yourself for everybody?
Sure. So again, I'm Cheryl McColgan, the founder of Heal Nourish Grow, and I do health and wellness coaching, and I am focused on low carb nutrition, and I just help people look and feel better. So that's really what I'm all about. I've been doing keto personally myself for going on, I think it's like 6 years now, since what year was that? 2016. And so obviously I have a lot of experience with it. I've experienced all the pitfalls and the upsides and the downsides of it and the challenges of it, doing it while my husband was not on board with it for a couple of years. We have 2 kids in the house. So certainly lots of experience with how to deal with all of those sorts of things.
So I want to know, how did you decide to start going on low carb, and what started you on this journey?
Yeah, so it's a kind of a long answer. I'll try to keep it somewhat brief. I do talk about this in my new book that's coming out. It's got kind of how I got into it. But really, one of the things that had happened was my dad got cancer. And so
Oh,
during the time
sorry.
that I was, yeah, thank you. During the time that that was going on, I started doing a bunch of research, and I came across this information about the Nobel Prize in 2016. I think I might have even seen the original press release, but it mentioned this word that up to that point I had never heard, called autophagy. And what autophagy is, it's basically your body's ability to clean its cells. So if you're not eating, so if you're fasting, it goes into really overdrive, and so your body goes around and like eats up misfolded proteins, cells that might be damaged or mutated. That's the word I was looking for. And so once I read about that, I was like, oh. And then I'd been into yoga for years and years, and was an instructor at that point. So in the yoga community, fasting is pretty normal and not seem weird to anybody, right? Because that is one thing, like for years, I didn't really want to talk about it that much because it wasn't as accepted. Well, now I'd say the last, 3 or 4 years, it's really gotten much more accepted. So once I saw that about autophagy and the Nobel Prize, I thought, okay, well, if this is something that can possibly help me prevent cancer or to just be healthier, I'm going to do it. And I'd done it in the past through these, like I said, these yoga spiritual kind of fasts and stuff. So I started doing it on a much more regular basis. And, in researching it more, keto is very well known that a lot of people in the keto community fast as well. So I came across keto, started reading about that. Again, ran into all this stuff about how good it is for, in relation to cancer and possibly, preventing some disease processes by improving your metabolic health. And that's kind of when I got onto it. So I had also, put on some weight from this really stressful job. So the fact that most people came to it for weight loss was like an added benefit. And I did, was able to accomplish losing the weight that I had put on pretty I don't want to say easily, because I don't think it's ever easy, especially when you get to be, late to mid 40s. But it was certainly much easier than anything I'd ever done in the past. So that was still a little long, but that was the shorter version.
Oh, okay, that's so interesting. So you currently incorporate fasting into your nutrition?
Yes, absolutely. I do a 60-hour fast every month, and I do intermittent fasting every day. So I'll typically have an eating window of 8 to 10 hours, but I'm not really rigid with it. And I think that that's important for people to know, because if you do it, this is all a choice, right? And this is all for your health. So if you get really rigid with it, or if you're torturing yourself, like some days I'll just wake up really hungry for whatever reason. Maybe I was extra stressed the day before, or maybe I had a really busy day. And so if that's the case, I go ahead and eat. And I don't push it unless I'm doing that, my serious 60-hour, then sometimes I have to, like have myself a little talk about it and like, yes, we're still doing this, body, we're going to do it this week. But I think the important thing is to not be super regimented. And I also think, for weight loss, weight maintenance, your body likes it when you shake things up. When you do the same thing day after day, same eating window, eat the same things, eat at the same times, your body becomes accustomed to those things and becomes more efficient at that. And so that's what causes you to actually burn less calories. You want to trick your body so it's confused and it's not efficient. And then it takes it more energy to accomplish whatever it is you're trying to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's very similar to working out. How if you have the same workout regimen, your body gets used to it, your body knows how to do it efficiently, which is good. Your body's trying to
Right.
work efficiently, but when you're trying to gain or lose weight, you have to trick your body. Okay, so
Exactly.
so what are some of the health benefits of a low carb diet? Because I know this is very popular now. Low carb,
Yes.
keto, paleo, all those different, styles.
Right.
What's the main health benefit?
So if we're talking about strictly keto, and this is different from the other ones that you mentioned, I think all of those that you mentioned all have wonderful benefits of their own, paleo and low carb, but keto in specific. So the whole reason it's called keto is because you enter a ketogenic state. It's called ketosis. It's a metabolic process in your body. And one of the benefits of that of being in ketosis is it's very muscle sparing. So it protects your muscles. It's an anti-inflammatory diet. So for a lot of people that have any kind of autoimmune issues, if they have, part of heart disease is because of inflamed vessels, because we're eating too much sugar and carbs. And so it's a very anti-inflammatory diet. And then there's also a piece of research, and this is actually cited in the book as well, that talks about a metabolic advantage of keto, that your body kind of wastes extra calories. And so it amounts to about an extra 300 calories a day. So that's just one study, but there's various people and tons of anecdotal evidence that people just notice that it seems to be that they can eat more and still not gain weight. So I think for a lot of people, that's a really beautiful part of it. Another benefit of being in ketosis is that you are able to improve your metabolic health. It really balances your blood sugar. And so what happens with a lot of people is they eat a high carb, and it might even be like what we consider a healthy thing, right? So say they eat oatmeal with fruit for breakfast. Okay, so that's a typical, like really traditional, healthy kind of meal, right? But the problem with that meal is it's a very high glycemic meal, which means it'll cause your blood sugar to rise. And when you have a really high blood sugar spike, guess what's going to come next? You're going to have a crash. And so it's usually on that way down when people get really hangry. And when I say hangry, I assume everybody knows that term, but it's like hunger and angry at the same time because you're so hungry. And that was me. Like I could not miss a meal. I could not go for too long without food because I was on that constant blood sugar roller coaster. Well, once you go to keto, you don't have that anymore because you're not eating foods that create that spike. So with that really balanced blood sugar, what happens is people like maybe for the first time are able to like forget to eat. Like say, like in a good way though, right? Because they're like not so hangry all the time. And then that allows you to move into the intermittent fasting to just eat less calories overall because you're not raving, starving all the time. So to me, that is the biggest benefit of it is that if people can get past that initial phase of the transition phase, you're teaching your body to use a new metabolic process. So it can be a little challenging for some for the first couple of weeks. But once you get past that and you have this evenness and this, brain fogless. You just feel really good and full of energy after that. And so that's what I think it is for most people. I think it's how good you feel and the ability to suddenly not feel like you have to eat all the time. And
Yeah.
it makes it easy.
Well, Cheryl, I'm like taking notes as you're talking here because what you just said is gold, and I want to touch back upon what you said about how keto is an autoimmune diet because I've noticed, the funny thing is as I'm building the Mamaverse, I'm talking to all these different wellness experts, and they talk very similarly a lot about how they went on a journey because of an autoimmune or like they're trying to just become healthier. That there's like diet. I hear about diet impacting not only if you're trying to like lose weight, but also your emotional wellness, your mental wellness. That diet has a lot to do with it. And you're talking about normal. So today we're eating too much sugar and carbs.
Yeah, and that's another thing. And by the way, you don't have to take so many notes because I write about a lot of it. So if you're interested, I can just send you a copy of the book.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm just like, oh my God, I gotta write this out.
Because this is the, I mean, I've just been passionate about this for so long, and the anti-inflammatory part is really a special thing about it because a lot of people have just struggled with these things for so long and have tried so many things, and even have tried autoimmune protocol diets, but those aren't necessarily a low carb or ketogenic diet. So it just depends on what your thing is. And just to be clear, just to not scare anybody away, like if you want to do better, you can make it, and this is how I actually recommend that people do it, you can make it a slow progression. So if you're currently eating, it depends on if you're eating like the current healthy American diet or if you're eating just a total garbage American diet, but just over time you start to reduce those things. Take weeks or months to do it and just make little behavior changes, because often when people try to just like go crazy and jump right into something, it's just too much. It's too much at once, and then you get frustrated and you stop. Whereas if you build up slowly over time, you just got to like lay the bricks to the foundation of making your new habits. And then once that good foundation is there, then you can start kind of stacking these things like fasting, like more exercise, meditate, other things. But just start with one thing. Don't try to do too much at once. I guess that would be my biggest piece, because you just think, oh, I'm going to get healthier. And you try to do all the things, and then people get frustrated and they quit all of them.
Yeah, I can see that. So what exactly is the difference between keto versus just low carb?
So in most literature, if you're looking at research literature, it's probably a different definition in research than it is for people that actually practice these things. But in most research, they'll call low carb things like 200 grams of carbs a day, which is still quite a lot. Whereas most people in the space of like a health space, they would call low carb something more like around 100 to 125 grams of carbs per day. And then to get into ketosis, it's really a little different for everybody. But I can say, if you want to guarantee that you're in ketosis, start off with 25 total carbs per day.
Wow.
And that's going to get you into a ketogenic state. Now, if you're very active or if you have a lot of muscle mass, you can get away with eating more carbs and still stay in ketosis. The only way you can really know for sure is to test, but it's not really necessary at the beginning. For most people, just going lower carb, whether you get into ketosis or not, is going to do you so much good. Like, you won't even believe it. So I wouldn't get too hung up on that nitty gritty stuff at the beginning. But if you're a data nerd at all like me, or you just like knowing that stuff, I mean, I've always been one to test and I just like it, but it's not necessary really.
So how do you know when you are in ketosis?
So you might be able to feel it. A lot of people say they can feel it, or you just feel so different. And that could just be a difference from not eating a bunch of garbage too, right? But the only way to know for sure is there are 3 methods, and I recommend 2 of them. One I don't recommend. One of them are actually these sticks that you get in a jar. That it's like $10 for 200 of them, and you pee on them. And then it turns color and you'll know you're in ketosis. But the problem with these, it only works when you're first starting, because your body like makes a massive amount, so much that it spills into the urine. And then over time, when your body gets more efficient, like we were talking about before, with this new metabolic process, it's not spilling, it's not wasting them. It's not, you're not peeing them out anymore. So then you have to check your blood. So if you have ever been around a diabetic where they have a little lancet, you poke your finger, and then you have the strip, and you can test ketones or blood glucose. They're both useful when you're working on ketosis, but there's a special strip for ketones, and you put a drop of blood on it, and then it pops out a number. And I wish I would have thought of this before I could have brought that down here with me. I could have just shown you. But it's pretty easy. It's just what I just described. And then there's also a breath one. And so if you don't like poking your fingers or any of that's intimidating, you can literally like breathe into this apparatus, and it senses the acetone on your breath, which is a byproduct of, this whole ketosis situation. And then you'll know. So, but again, in the beginning, I really wouldn't get so hung up on that. I think literally just going lower carb for a while is so useful. And I hate for people to get overwhelmed or feel like that they need to buy things to feel better. Because like I said, testing is just like a fun thing. It's kind of useful in some cases, but it's totally not necessary.
So have you found a difference with men versus women trying to lose weight going keto? Like,
absolutely. You hear it all the time. It's no different. Like, here's the other thing. Keto is not, it's magic in the way that it makes you feel and the way that it balances your hunger hormones. It's not magic in that if you still overeat, if you still don't move, if you still have other bad habits, you're still going to struggle with weight loss. So if weight loss is the main goal with keto, what I recommend, again, is that first that slow period where you're just getting used to keto, and then people call it like dirty keto or lazy keto. So for a while, just cutting out carbs and making this transition is enough that the scale will be moving, especially initially, because you lose a lot of water weight because you're getting rid of your glycogen in your muscles are getting used up. And once they're used up, they're stored in the muscles along with 3 grams of water. So as you deplete those, this water weight's going off too. So it's really exciting in the beginning, But then after that, it's just like normal weight loss. The only difference is you're getting maybe that metabolic advantage of 300 calories that we talked about before, and then you're not hungry all the time. So it's easier to stay on a reasonable amount of calories. So, but the difference between men and women, for men, it's just always easier. They have more muscle mass. This is a generalization. This is not always true, but they tend to be like slightly more active or lift weights, which is like one of the best things that you can do for weight loss. Not a lot of cardio. Stick to the weight-bearing exercises and lifting. So I think that's why they have an easier time, and they just are bigger, have faster metabolism. So if they start cutting back, the difference is just that much quicker. Where if you have like a 5-foot lady starting out with not much muscle mass, I mean, she's going to have a tough time. And it's depressing, but it's slower, but it's just the same thing. It's just consistency. I wish I had a magic bullet for that. But I do think keto makes it a whole lot easier because you're not so hungry all the time.
Yeah. Okay. I see. So, I love this conversation. It's a perfect topic because I am also doing like a low carb cycling. I'm in like a carb cycle right now. And I did notice that my weight loss in the very beginning was a lot. And then it was up and down, up and down. I'm like, oh, weight loss is not linear. And my trainers and nutritionists like, no, it goes up and down, up and down. But like the general trajectory should be downward, but it's not just straight down. And that was something like I had to wrap my mind around, like, really? Unfortunately.
No, and it's funny. If you look over time, and sometimes I do share this on my Instagram. I haven't done it for a while, but I know not everybody's like this and not everybody agrees with weighing, but I look at it as a useful tool. And over the years, I've been able to, I just train myself. It's just a data point. So I don't let it ruin my day. I don't care. I literally can fluctuate 3 pounds, 4 pounds day to day. I mean, especially women's bodies, we just tend to like hold on to water weight more or less, or you went out to eat the night before, there's a lot more sodium. You're just going to weigh more. It doesn't mean that you gained weight. It's just that over time. But the reason why I like to weigh myself every day, like, again, I'm able to just look at a data point. For people to get freaked out, only do it once a week. And there are ways that if you really don't want to weigh, you can you can use your tape measure, you can use your camera, take pictures, you can see changes, you can just cut a piece of string and see if the string is getting smaller around your waist. So there's a lot of ways you can do it without a scale, but I like the scale because I'm a data nerd. And so literally, I think I have an Excel spreadsheet that has weights going back to 2009 or something like this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I know, it's so ridiculous. Hey, see that? But yeah, so I have that data, and I actually have some apps now that create these charts. And what's cool about the charts is you'll see over time, you'll see this boom, 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 up and down. But then if your goal is weight loss or weight gain, whichever one it is, like you'll see over time, oh, over the last 3 months, it is going down. And there's like apps are so wonderful for all of that now. Like I'm talking about, I was OG with the with the spreadsheet, but now you can just put it in an app. I even actually, my scale actually just sends it to my phone, which is crazy. I have a whipping scale, which if anybody's interested for that, I do have a link. But yeah, it's just like life changing. I just love the data, so it doesn't bother me.
Do you also measure like muscle mass versus like body composition?
I do. And personally, and I talk about that a lot in the book too, really, the only reason I use the scale is because it's a useful tool, like I said, but it's meaningless because there have been plenty of times in my life that I have weighed and I can look at photos and I can be like, because I have all these dates, right? And I'll be like, oh, look at that photo. How much did I weigh in that photo? You know?
Oh gosh,
and then,
wow.
So I can look and see like, okay, once say, let's just pick a number. I don't even know what, let's just say 100 pounds. I'm obviously not 100 pounds, but let's say 100 pounds. And you can look at yourself and maybe you were wearing a size 0 or something. I'm now actually talking about a whole different person, but this is just an example because I am not 5 feet and I'm not anywhere near 100. But so say that person's 100 pounds. Well, then they get on a fat loss program and they lift some weights and they gain some muscle and she still weighs 100 pounds, but now she's like in a 000. So and I shouldn't even use zeros as an example because that's a very tiny person, but she is 5 feet tall. So anyway, in this magical person, but you will look completely different if you have a lot of muscle mass and you've lost fat at 100 pounds versus at your 100 pounds and you have a whole lot of body fat and you don't work out and you don't have any muscle. It's just like you look like two completely different people. So to your point, like the scale is not it. If you can get a good body composition thing, I would do it. It's worth the money. There's a DEXA scan. There's hydrostatic weighting. It's kind of the gold standard where you get in water to do it. But those are kind of hard to find. But I did one years ago. They had like a mobile van that was going around. I happened to be in Phoenix at the time, and I think it was $80. And you got in this tub, and I think you even had to submerge your whole self. I can't remember exactly, but that's the most accurate. And then DEXA scan, people know that one. You lay on a table, they scan your body. Those are more widely available now for body composition, but just be sure that if you call a place or are asking about it, make sure you ask for one that's for body composition specifically, because they're really used for bone mass. And I actually had this happen 2 years ago. I had asked my doctor, I said, oh, can I get a DEXA scan? Because in Cincinnati, we don't have the kind that you just can pay and go. In a lot of cities, they do. And she's like, sure, no problem. But then when they did the scan, they didn't have like the ability they didn't have the right software or whatever it is. They don't do it for body composition. So if you go, just be sure to ask. But I think those are so valuable because it really tells you a lot of interesting things. Like it breaks down your body. It'll tell you where you hold the most fat, and also tells you about visceral fat, which is really the most dangerous fat. That's the one that's related to heart disease and all of those things. It's a high risk factor, and it's like generally in the middle. And, you know, for those of us ladies that are near 50 and starting to go to perimenopause and to menopause, that's what starts to happen to us. We start to have more male problems because we're losing to estrogen. So the visceral fat starts to collect more, which is, like I said, the most dangerous one for health. So those are just, it gives you a lot of good data if you can happen to find one. And for the most part, they're generally somewhere around $100. I realize that's not nothing, but I mean, in relation to something for your health, I think it's something I would invest in for sure.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I was hoping you could clarify for people who, for me, and for those who may not be as familiar, but what is the link between carbs and weight loss or weight gain?
So what people think it is, I think one of the things is what we've already talked about a lot, and that is just because you're eating in this way, your blood sugar is balanced, so you're not as hungry all the time. So that's one way. But what it also does is it gets rid of so much insulin production. So every time you have those big spikes that we talked about, you're also releasing insulin in your body, because your body's set like, oh my God, your body likes homeostasis, right? So it's like, oh, this is way too much sugar. We got to get insulin out here so we can tell insulin to shove that glucose into the cells to use it later, so it's not floating around in our blood. We're going to put it in the fat cells. So that's insulin's job. Literally, the job of insulin is to tell your body to store fat. So one of the theories is, if you are not doing that, you're not telling your body to store fat all the time, that it has the ability to use energy more efficiently, and then it's taking the fat that is already stored in your cells and it's breaking down that fat and turning it into ketones to use for energy. So that's what they think. But nobody, I don't know if anybody really knows for sure. And like, it's always still, this is, again, sorry to mention that again, but I talk about this in books. It's like this crazy thing, like the calories in, calories out people are over here, and the insulin theory people are over here. And, you know, sometimes they'll argue, and I'm like, it's both. It's totally both. I mean, human bodies are very complex. And there's no reason to think it's not all about calories. It's not all just about insulin either. You got to have an energy balance, but also, you know, telling your body to store fat all day. Like, think of all these times where people are like, eat every couple hours, and then they're eating a bunch of sugary, carby things. And your whole time, insulin's just working to store all that in your fat cells. So I think they're both very valid. But I think there will be more research someday, and we'll have a better idea of those mechanisms. And again, you know, I'm just a lay person, so this is my understanding of it, but I do study a lot about it. So that's the layman's version of it, basically.
No, I think that's so, well, one, it's interesting. It's really educational for me. I've never heard of it like that, broken down like that before. So, I mean, I really appreciated that explanation. Cheryl, this has been so educational. I feel like I could have like a 2-hour talk with you just on this topic, because I myself am going through a different change in nutrition of how I think about like carbs, and trying to eat more whole foods and try not to get that spike of like, I'm hungry, I'm salty, sweet, which I was doing before. So is there anything, like, if you could give somebody one tip on like how to start transitioning into more of a low carb or a keto diet, what would that be?
It's what I say every time: just eat whole foods. And that can include things initially like a potato or a sweet potato. If those are replacing Twinkies and pizza and whatever, I'm happy for you to eat potatoes, you know? And for most people, if they would make that transition, which is more paleo, like you mentioned that kind of early on in our conversation, I think that's why for a lot of people, paleo is an awesome first step. It gets them eating more whole foods. They still eat a lot of fruit and other things, but it's all real food. So that's my biggest tip to anybody, is just eat as much real food as you can. And then if you're really struggling with weight and weight loss, though, once you get into as many whole foods as you can, then you will have to maybe start to play with that a little bit to find, you know, a level of carbs that works for you, that still allows you to, you know, feel good and have a treat now and then, but then still take advantage of all these, you know, benefits to it that we just talked about.
Yeah, that's amazing. For all of the listeners and watcher viewers, go follow Cheryl on her Instagram. She is a wealth of knowledge, and you share recipes. And I know I was like looking through your different like recipes that you were posting as well. And go support Cheryl. We want to thank you so much for joining the Mamaverse. It was so educational. And
yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we have to connect again soon. I feel like there's more things that we can do together.
Oh, anytime. Happy to chat. And also, just if anybody is interested in this, there's a free summit coming up. It starts on the 25th, which I think is a week, a little bit, 6 days from now. So it starts on Monday, but it's a totally free. All you have to do is go. There's a link in my bio. It's the Women in Keto Summit. There's like 25 or 30 experts giving free keto education. So as long as you use my link, you can just register and you can attend all the sessions for free. So if anybody wants to know more about this from people that are even more experienced and more awesome, then go check that out.
Oh my God, I'm going to sign up right now too.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. It was great.
All right, thank you. It's so nice to meet you.
All right,
thank
have
you.
a great one. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.